things, but I guess every one of us could really identify with a sense of, I want to get even. You know what I'm talking about? You've got these feelings inside and you just want someone to come and, you just want to clobber that other person that's caused you pain. And I guess the original Israelites that this message was given to, when it talks about the vengeance of the Lord will be let me just read it to you. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me because God has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God. And I bet the original audience thought, yes! Go God! Do vengeance on our captives. And I imagine they were thinking all sorts of things like armies trailing in and desecrating the land, and that they would come out looking squeaky clean and vindicated by the Lord of hosts. And, you know, I imagine that that's probably what they were thinking. And then, you know, as it didn't play out the way that they perhaps had thought, they would kind of feel perhaps a wee bit confused, and then had to go back and have a look and see what the word says. And I know that for me at times, I ask the Lord to vindicate me. The word says, and He is my vindicator. The word says, vengeance is His, He will repay. And I go, God, will you get them? Yeah. Have you ever prayed like that, or was it just me? God, can you get them? Because you're doing really well. And it's kind of not worked out the way, because, you know, He will do it. When He gets it, He does it really well. If I do it, I muck it up. But if He does it extremely well. But when you know, like those Israelites, that God was going to take up your cause, it can give you a real sense of smugness. You're done. God's going to get you. There's no way you can get away from Him. You are stuck. That's it. You can't get away. There's a sense of real bloating that can come into your spirit. You know, when I was first married, and Ed would do things that annoyed me, and, you know, because I wasn't very good at saying how I felt, or what I should, I really wasn't very good at that at all. I never had learnt those skills. And so instead of saying to him, look, when you do that, it's really quite annoying, I would fume. And he'd be fuss, and he would come home and he'd say, what's the matter? And I did the typical woman thing, nothing. And he, you know, it's that walking on ice feeling for him, and he would know that actually something was wrong. And after a while he would weed it out of me. But then I thought, actually that's not very good, so I thought, I'm just going to go and tell God on you. And so I would go and tell God on him. And he would come in and say, what's the matter? I said, no, you need to just go and pray about it to God and show you. I did that. You know, rather than growing up and learning to say what I felt and actually state my case, I would go and tell God. And initially God listened. But then after a while I found I would go and tell him again, and God would say, yeah, that's true. But there's this wee attitude in you that needs a wee bit of adjustment. And I'd go, yeah, I guess that's right. So I would end up apologising. And then every time I did that, it always ended up like I'm the one apologising for my attitude. After a while I stopped doing that because it wasn't really working. Over my life I've seen many times God vindicate that there's a couple of things that I've really noticed about God. This one is, it usually takes a while. Simple, really. It doesn't happen the next day like I want it to. And I so want it to. I'll say about a situation and tell them about it, and I feel like it was when I was first married. I feel like God's saying, yes, that's true. But Dayle, there's something in you that needs that wee to like fixed response. It doesn't really do you any good. And you know, maybe if you give that to me, I'll upgrade it for something better. And so I'm finding, I mean, nothing's really changed. He's still about fixing me. Obviously, there's a lot more there to fix. And it's true. You know, if I'm willing to give that up, to yield it, to relinquish it to him, something in me dies. It has to die. It's his way or my way. What's dying in me? It's my own stubbornness, my own selfishness, my own desire to have it my way. It's my way or the highway. It has to die. It has to die. I can't have it both ways. It's my way or God's way. I can't have it both. But you know, when you go through that and think, do I want to give that up? Because we can justify ourselves. Well, you know, if they didn't do that and they hadn't said that, and it's not fair. It's not fair. Why is it that they always get off scot-free? We can justify anything. But at the end of the day, they're fine and I'm feeling miserable. You know, I mean, that's really what it's like. So I have to, when I relinquish it, and it is a struggle. It's a bit like childbirth. You know, I've seen a number of women give birth, and it's really painful. And, you know, but at the end of it, there's a baby. And they forget all about the pain. I don't know why, but they just do. But then during the experience of going through childbirth, I've never heard one woman say, I'm enjoying this, I can't wait to come back again. Normally by that stage they're swearing and cursing at their husband that caused it and declaring they're never going to have any more children. You know, and you know, and I thought we can feel like that too. But once you've given it over to God and you get the upgrade, what he exchanges for you, there's nothing that compares. It's so good. It's so good. And you wouldn't want to give it back because you've paid the price. You won't give it back. And you'll never lose it because you've paid the price. Another thing I've noticed, God's vengeance is never on his sons and daughters. Never. You're feeling condemned here tonight? Guess who you're listening to? Because it's not God. Because Jesus took all our punishment. And we go scot-free. Unbelievable. But that's our God. Jesus took all our punishment. We go scot-free. Absolutely, we are unpunishable. And the things that often will bring pressure and problems in our lives are the result of our own choices. They are the things often that cause us pain. They're consequences of the choices that we make. But it's before God, we go scot-free. Tell your neighbour, that's a good place for you. Scot-free. Scot-free. Don't tell if they look like they don't believe it, just poke them and say, you get away with murder. Okay, another thing I've noticed that God's vengeance is on his enemies. God takes vengeance on his enemies. What are the enemies of God? Sin, death, and Satan are God's enemies. They are God's enemies. It's not the person that offended me. It's not the one that caused me pain. It's not that person that spoke about me behind my back. They're not God's enemies. He takes vengeance on his enemies. Romans 8:2 says, through Jesus Christ, the Lord, the sin of life, has set me free from the law of sin and death. That's two enemies down. Just like that. One swoop. Two enemies gone. Then only leaves another enemy. Satan. Satan is a created being. God created him to serve him. And you know what? Nothing's changed. Despite himself, Satan still serves the purposes of God. Absolutely. Nothing has changed. But there's something else. There's another level. In Romans 8:28, he says, he makes all things work together for my good. All things. That doesn't mean to say that everything that happens to us is good. It isn't. There's some horrible stuff that happens in people's lives. Terrible stuff. Excruciatingly painful, crippling stuff that happens. But God somehow, when we invite him, he adds his touch to it. And somehow, in only the way God does in the supernatural realm, he makes it work out for our highest good. It's good as he sees good. Not always as we interpret good, but it's good as God sees it. And he makes it work out. You know, I came from a background of abuse. A real once warrior's background, shocking, terrible stuff. And you know, I look back and go, what was good about growing up in that? I used to think, well, if God is a God of love, I missed out and I wasn't very impressed. But you know, I look back now and I see how God has added to it. What's he done? He's added a great husband. He's added wisdom and insight and understanding. And now I can stand on that and minister to others that are in that environment because I know what it feels like. And there's a level of authenticity and authority that comes with that unless you've been there, you haven't got it. Okay? So he makes all things good. Psalm 190 verse 16 says, before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I have kept your word. Psalm 190 verse 70 says, it was good for me that I was afflicted, so I could learn your ways. Another way would be putting it, it was good for me to get that ticket, so now I stop at the stop sign. Or it could be, it was good for me to fail that test, because now I understand the value of study. It was good for me to experience that insult, because now I get to learn how to love a person who doesn't love me. How do you get to love? You learn things from loving an enemy that you don't get from loving your friend. And from God's perspective, it is good for us to have an enemy so we can learn to love them. Because you're not going to learn that with just friends. It's good as God sees good. But afterwards, we absolutely love it. Because you're free. You're absolutely free. Joseph said when his brothers came and they thought that Joseph was going to get them and take revenge once their father had died, he said to them, they'd sold him into slavery. He said, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for the saving of many lives. The enemy puts things on your life for evil. But if we let him, God will use it for the saving, not of your life, but of others too, because of the way that you fit it. You know, we've been a few years in the ministry now, and I've seen how God has taken people whose lives are broken with tailor-made abuse from the enemy. And they've been crippled by adverse circumstances, and they've been beaten down by negative circumstance after negative circumstance, and they've come to God. And he has picked them up, he's healed them, he's restored them, he renews them, he revitalizes them, he revives them, he gives them fresh hope, a new life, he gives them liberty and joy, and you see them just blossom. And they're the ones that lead others into freedom from the kind of circumstances that they came out with. You know, when you've been free from a circumstance, you have that authority to lead others into the same freedom. You paid the price, it's yours. You go out and lead others. You don't need a platform. You don't need permission from us. You just go and do it. You paid the price for it. You've got the authority. Go and do it. That's your mandate. That's your mandate. Now that's vengeance on God's enemy. Yeah. That's vengeance. He tried to cripple you, imprison you with your own particular chains, whether they be injustice or goodness, whatever. He tried to keep you contained. And the Lord delivers you. You go and release others out of the same trap that you were in. That's God's vengeance. Yeah. Doesn't look like our vengeance, doesn't look like what we saw there, but that's the vengeance of God. Man, if you be released, you've got that authority. Your misery becomes another mission. Furthermore, listen to this. This is so exciting. Poke your neighbour, say this is going to be good. You're going to love this. This is the best part. Are you sitting on the edge of your seat? Oh, this is so good. And there's many of you here that need to go home and underline this verse and make it your own. I'm prophesying now. It says, instead of shame and dishonour, you will enjoy a double share of honour. Instead of shame and dishonour, you will enjoy a double share of honour. You will possess a double portion of prosperity in your land. Woohoo! And everlasting joy will be yours. Come on, how do you like that? Come on, I like that. That is so good. That is so good. Have you ever been humiliated, slapped down, pushed down, beaten, shamed, disgraced, spoken about, the barb of judge, despised, humiliated, discarded? You've ever experienced that? Well, this is the scripture for you. This is the scripture for you. Have you ever reduced your life down to the bare minimum of what you think God might do with your life, with your own effort? This is the scripture for you. This is not an Oliver Twist anointing. You're not going to go, hey, please, can I have a little bit of joy? So it brings my level of misery up another level, so it makes it a bit more comfortable. It's not about that. This is double for what you've endured. Double. 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 Do you want that tonight? This is your portion. The enemy will be whispering in your ear thinking, oh, she's a bit over the top. That can't be right. It's not true. This is what the word says. Double. Don't settle for a single. I want a double. How many of you pray for a double portion? Well, come on. Stand up and say, God, you promised. You are true to your word. You are true for it. God's heart for you is a double portion. A double portion. So jump up and down. I want it. Like a 4-year-old. I want the double portion. You know, get like that. I want the double portion. It's my right. It's my right as a son or daughter. And it is my right. You know, it's often the sad thing is that often we don't actually want that exchange. I mean, we know here, but inwardly we've got barriers. And have you ever wondered how God feels when we don't want that? We choose to remain at a mediocre level. Have you ever wondered how God feels? Recently I've got quite a bit of study to get through, so I've decided I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock and I'm going to, spend a certain amount of time and then do an hour study before I kind of get into my day. And, the first couple of days is great. I think I'm very clear thinking in the morning. I can plough through quite a bit of stuff and I felt really good. Then the Olympics started. How many sat up watching the Olympics till all hours in the morning, even though you're not really interested in what you're watching, but you just watch it because it's the Olympics? Maybe it's just me, but I did. And I was I was up till 2 o'clock watching something which I'm not even interested in, but I'm watching the Olympics. That's great, you drag yourself out of bed again at 6, 4 hours, oh, that's okay. But the next day was terrible. I slept right into a habit and I got up and I felt really disappointed. I'm disappointed in myself. I'm disappointed that I didn't make myself get up. I'm disappointed that I sat up watching stuff I didn't really want anyone, wasn't interested in. And I was just sitting there and I was just drying up my hair because I washed it and I was drying up and the Lord spoke to me. It was clear as clear. And He said to me, you ever wondered how I feel when I see you beating yourself up like that? It was one of those kind of rhetorical questions. And I just sort of kept my arm in there as I was drying on my hair. Have you ever wondered how God feels? He's made every provision for us to walk in absolute joy with every provision laid out before us. And we choose to live a meager, mediocre life. How does He feel about that? He's made it possible for everyone to do that. And I just said, Lord, what do you feel? And he just said, I just feel so sad, so incredibly sad, because it doesn't have to be like this. It's just so easy for you. I just feel so sad. There's no judgment, no criticism, nothing of that. It was just a sense of, grief is not the wrong word, but it was more like a longing to connect, a longing for me to flourish. And then he said, you don't have to do that. I budgeted for that. I knew you were going to do that. And I've made space for you later on in the week. And he had. And he cancelled a appointment. I made space for you. You don't need to have that work. Put it away. You don't need it. Well, who needs an enemy when you beat yourself up? Seriously. Well, you don't need it. We just do it all ourselves. Well, I do. Maybe you're more spirit than I am, but I've got it down to a pretty good art, find out. So I put away the work. I actually felt much better. One of the musos of mine is, to be a place where you're comfortable with your failures is a great place to be. I'm part of the company of the unashamed. I'm comfortable with my humanity. I get it wrong, big time sometimes, but that's okay. I don't need the work because Jesus has vindicated me. And he does a really good job. It's not the way sometimes I'd want it, but he does it really well. I want to just say, you might be in a situation here tonight and you're thinking vengeance thoughts on someone that's really hurt you or offended you. And maybe, like some of us, your mind would go all sorts of places and you bounce from putting sugar in their petrol tank to doing something like what I heard of one girl. Ian's told this story before, and it's a crack about two sisters that were fighting, in their room one night, and the mum would come in and say, you girls settle down, and then after about the third time she really lost her rag, and they would pull each other's beds to bits. She said, if you do that one more time, you're for it. So one of the girls got up and she pulled her beds to bits, and then she went, Mum! Of course, blaming her sister. It's quite innovative, isn't it? And yes, her sister got it. Well, maybe you don't think like that. Maybe you don't actually think things out. You just do it. You just flies out like those two women that we watched on the USB clip. Maybe it's just you just let loose when it is, and then you think afterwards, actually, that wasn't my smartest moment. And maybe just listening to me tonight, you think, well, God, how would I do this your way? What's your way of dealing with this sense of deep revenge that I want? I guess many of you have been travelling on the open highway, and you go up, as you travel on, particularly as we get further up north, you hit these pass lanes. And I don't know whether you've been in a situation where you're in the passing lane and you're trying to pass the other car and it speeds up. And you think, what? You're doing 80 and then when I'm trying to pass you, you're doing 120. What is that? And you're trying to pass it, and then the passing lane is coming to end. And you see the sign that you know that that passing lane is going to merge, and the pressure is on who's going to win. One of you has to yield to the other. And it's like this when our walk with the Lord. One of us has to yield. Is it going to be my way or his way? I can't have both. My way, I'm going to do it my way, or am I going to do it his way? When we choose to do it his way, that's what Paul talks about when he says, take up your cross daily. That's taking up your cross. Choosing to do it his way. Does it hurt? Yes. And let me tell you that forgiveness is crucial. It's absolutely crucial to the whole process. You don't need to feel good about it. They are not always going to win. It's crucial for your health and for your well-being to forgive the person no matter what they do. When you forgive people, it gets the monkey off your own back. It gets the monkey off your own back, regardless of the other person. They're not getting away scot-free. It gets the monkey off your back. It's absolutely crucial. I want to invite you, when things happen, to consider your revenge. Get it God's way. He always does it right. He always does it well. And yeah, it's different. And yeah, it costs. But there is nothing like it. Absolutely nothing. And not just for your own sake, but the saving of many lives. Those ones around you that you'll affect. Those ones that will follow you. Those ones that will, see you and watch you. A classic example of this would be Nelson Mandela. He was a man for, of course we all know him, the South African president, Prime Minister. And he was imprisoned for 27 years on Robben Island for his struggles against apartheid. Initially it was a peaceful process, but when things weren't happening, they acted on deliberate sabotage. And in that deliberate sabotage, some people got killed. He was in prison for 27 years. And then he was released by Frederick de Klerk, the Prime Minister. I asked Jan and Rena if he's any relation. But no, he said no, although Rena assures me that Jan does look very much like him. So who knows? But as he was released, and there's pictures in Wikipedia about him, about how him and President de Klerk, how they are shaking hands, and then they both received the Nobel Prize because his message, his mandate was reconciliation, not revenge. Reconciliation. The whole world took notice. Why? He paid the price. He didn't come out full of revenge, full of regrets, steaming hatred with everybody. No. He yielded that up. And as a result, he received the double portion and the double honour. And the effect of his life is ongoing, particularly in South Africa. I want to encourage you. Do it God's way. He always does it right. He's your daddy. His heart is towards you. He will avenge you. That's his right. I will take the revenge. I will vindicate. He does it his way. It may take some time, but it's always perfect time. And as I wonder if you'd just mind standing with me, please. Sorry, I've gone over a bit of time. I'm just looking at the phone. I want to just provide, just as we've finished, I want to just provide an opportunity. If you don't know a God who restores you, who heals you, who renews you, who gives you joy, He's just so amazing. He's just wonderful. And the more I get to know him, the more I love him. He's just wonderful. If you don't know a God like that, if you're stuck in a prison somewhere, you need someone to pray for. We just love to pray for. We love seeing people being completely free, being made whole. If you want prayer, or whatever prison you're in, we'd love to pray for you. Because we believe in a God who brings release from captivity. God bless you. Thank you very much. Please come.